Okay, we are live on YouTube as well, but it'll be saved privately, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, we are live on YouTube as well, but it'll be. Okay. We're just waiting for folks to sign in. Thank you so much for joining. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So we have a very exciting panel, and we have Greg here with us as well. So we're switching it up today and sharing the same screen, so excuse us. What is it? Okay. All right, awesome, guys. So today's agenda, well, before I start, let me start off with a couple of announcements real quick. As we all know, there is a historic event that's still pending, but we did want to highlight that, you know, a person of color and a female could potentially be elected into office. So super thrilled about that. We didn't want to really get into the politics of it all, but just wanted to highlight that. Also wanted to give a special thank you to Hussein of MIT Solutions. He's offered his IT services for early stage startups exclusively for our members here that are joining today. So if you guys have a business, please reach out to Hussein. You can visit his website at mit.com. You guys did receive in the newsletter a link to actually schedule a meeting directly on their calendar. So of course it's free consulting services, IT consulting services, and there will be some limitations, obviously, just because you know, we don't want to over exert Hussein and his generosity. So thank you so much, Hussein. We also wanted to notify you guys that Vista Del Mar is seeking a certified career and life coach. So if you want to learn more, go ahead and email info@vistadelmarwm.com, as you can see on the screen. And then the Rock Church, the Business Roundtable Steering Committee is actually seeking board members. If you're interested, please contact Roy Landers, and his email is listed on the screen. Additionally, Toys for Joy is seeking donors and corporate sponsors. If you guys are interested, please visit their website, toysforjoy.org. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. I'm going to start off with introducing MCS Empowerment Coalition, our mission and vision. For those of you guys who are new, did want to give you like a quick overview of who we are and why we're doing this. Then we're going to go into the construction real estate panel, and then we'll do a breakout session where you can speak to the panelists directly. I have to figure out how many folks are on right now and determine the room size, but we'll work that out towards the end of this session, and then we'll network. And if you guys have any job opportunities, that would be a great time to mention those, and then wrap up with some closing remarks. So about me, my name is Mary Berhane. I'm the owner of Mary Consulting Services. So I started this business full-time earlier this year. Been helping tech companies and providing LinkedIn coaching. You know, grew up in San Diego, lived in LA for a little bit, went to school there for undergrad and grad school. And now I'm doing my part, trying to give back and network with like-minded individuals like yourselves. And so I thank you for you know, joining this meeting. And then Greg.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Greg Brown. I'm new to San Diego. I moved here about a year ago, or a little bit over a year ago. I'm in construction. Work as a project manager at the moment. And I actually just also started my own business, Abraham Global Consulting. We're a consulting firm doing construction management and pre-construction coordination. And Mary invited me to join her at MCS and help out. And so I love the vision, and I'm here to help and connect with you guys. So look forward to tonight. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And so Gabriella Berhane, who's my sister, she also is a founder. She's not feeling well today, but I just wanted to highlight a lot of work went in on the back end. You know, the newsletters and things that you're receiving came from her. She's an operations manager at a law firm. She also went to UCLA with me for undergrad, and then she went on to pursue her JD. So back to the mission and vision of MCS Empowerment Coalition. We're a network of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. We meet up every third Wednesday of the month. So moving forward, the link that you've received will be the official Zoom link. So every third Wednesday of the month, you know, go ahead and click on that link. At 6 p.m. Pacific time, we meet. We learn about new skills. So we get access to mentors. If you guys have job opportunities, this is a great forum to share it with our group. The whole point and goal of this group is for us to do business with each other and empower one another. And then our newsletter, which I don't know if you guys noticed, but we're now making sure we highlight minority-owned businesses. And so stay tuned for that. If you guys have any updates or events that you're hosting that you want the members to be aware of, please let us know, and then we'll go ahead and add it to the newsletter. All right, I did want to tell you a little bit about the traction that we've been making so far. September, obviously, we had our first kickoff meeting. Last month, we did a CEO panel. We talked about entrepreneurship journeys in that panel. And then, you know, the awesome part of organically doing this, Hussein ended up being super generous and offering to provide his IT services for those early stage startups within our group. And then, of course, today is the construction real estate series. For December, we're working on getting corporate sponsorship so that moving forward, the plan for next year is to have these events in person. So getting some money to do those types of events would be super awesome. And that's what we're working on as of yet. So now let's get to the fun stuff. We have our panelists, Adrian Johnson, we have Jeramy Poole, and we have Jesse Lyons, and of course, Todd, that are going to be talking about their experiences. Greg and I are going to be doing the moderation, and let's get into it. All right, to kick things off.
Hey everyone, good evening again. So we're going to kick things off with just trying to get to know who our panelists are, learn about them, and also have them share their journey with us. So our first question to the panelists, and we'll start, we can go Jesse, Adrian, Jeramy, and then Todd. So the first question is to, just give us a summary, provide a summary of your background, and what's the biggest lesson that you guys have learned that you wish someone told you. You guys are fairly young, so maybe 20 years ago. And so we can understand how you got to where you are today.
And who's up?
Who's up? Sorry, Jesse's up first.
Okay, there we go. So thank you. I appreciate you guys having me here, and it's an honor and it's nice meeting everybody. And I would usually start off if this was an in-person event and say, I like to quote Jay-Z and say, you could be anywhere in the world tonight, but you chose to be here, and I appreciate that. But considering that this is COVID-19 and we're not in person, you really could be anywhere else in the world, but you decide to log in here and hear what it is I have to say. So I don't know if it'll be meaningful or helpful. You'll decide that. But I really do appreciate you guys being here and having the opportunity and all of that. So, I'll keep it relatively short. I'm sure lots of people have lots of things to say here tonight, so I want to give everybody a fair chance. But my name's Jesse. Live in San Diego. Been here about 14 years now. Originally from a small island in the Caribbean called Antigua, but grew up in the States in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, before moving out this way for a job offer and a different lifetime, different career. I was in the fitness business for about 10 years and had a great job at the Salvation Army Joan Kroc Center as a fitness director. I worked there for 6 years. And the reason I left is, frankly, it was the Salvation Army, so I didn't make a lot of money, right? And it's hard to get by on 34 grand a year or whatever it was I got paid. So I decided to go back to school. And so my alphabet soup after my name is, Bachelor's of Science and Liberal Arts and Women's Studies from Clarion University of Pennsylvania, MBA from National University here in San Diego, and a bunch of other certifications, which are probably not terribly important. But in any case, the way I got into construction real estate is when I was going to school. Prior to that, I'd moved into a studio apartment downtown San Diego. Again, working Salvation Army, didn't have a lot of money. It was $750 a month, if you can believe that today. But that seemed like a lot of money at the time. And the owners of the building are young guys, same age as myself, in their mid 40s. And I met them because the building manager, I was just kind of chatting with him in the hallway one night. I was like, hey man, how'd you get into managing a building? It must be a good deal. You must save some money on rent or whatever. And he said, yeah, told me about it. And 2 weeks after that conversation, he got a job offer in Denver and had to move. And I ran into him again. He said, hey man, would you be, potentially interested in managing this building? I can introduce you to the owners. And I said, if it means saving a little money on rent, sure. And at that same time, I was transitioning to go back to school full time and knew that I wouldn't be earning a lot of money, so anything helped. Fast forward, those owners of that building a couple years later started their own development and construction company. And so, I started working with them, just saving $200 a month on rent to manage that 16-unit apartment building, and developed a relationship with them. And then as I finished school, was it 7 years ago now, as you guys remember, the job market was absolutely terrible. But I kept in touch with those guys, and they said, we're starting our company. We don't have anything today, but maybe it'll turn into something. I said, yeah, maybe, right? They then were building their first development, and they came to me and said, hey, we don't have a full-time job, and we know you're looking for a job, but we know you know property management, and we know you went to business school and you know marketing. Would you be interested in doing the marketing and the lease up for this mixed-use project in Pacific Beach? I said, sure, why not? As long as we have the understanding that if I do get that full-time job offer, I'm gonna have to walk away from this. And they said, yeah, no problem, we get it. And so I started doing all the marketing for that project, and building the website. You guys know what marketing is. And at the same time, their business started to take off, and I ended up managing the construction process as well, from about the halfway point to finishing that building, 21-unit luxury apartment building with commercial space down below. During that process, then they just said, all right, Jesse, we're ready. We got to have you on board full time. And so I joined that organization, employee number, I don't know, 2, 3, whatever it was, which started off doing marketing for the company and some property management, which then turned into IT, which then turned into operations. And you know how it goes, right? Small company, you wear all the hats, jack of all trades. And so that's kind of how I really got into the industry. But during that process, I had the opportunity to manage projects from, 1, 2 unit, $10,000 apartment remodels to $20 million, 81 unit apartment buildings, ground up developments, and working on from concept to completion, right? So through the entitlement process on the development side of things, through the bidding, and then the physical construction process, then also doing the QC work, and then turnover to property management in-house, or if we were doing third party, general contracting, turning it over to their property management company. So that's kind of how I got into it, and a little bit of my background and experience. So I was with that company for 6.5 years, plus or minus, and this past December, the job had really turned into more property management than anything, because that company had developed in such a way that they had a portfolio of over 200 units at that point in time. So that's what the need was property management, less marketing. The IT stuff had been figured out. I moved the organization entirely into the cloud, so it was kind of a done deal and didn't need a lot of work. And while property management is cool, it's not what I'm passionate about. And anyone that's ever done it, I'm sure, can understand that. The phone ringing, it never happens, between the hours of 8 and 5, right? It happens at Saturday at 7 o'clock at night. And that's the nature of it. And so it just wasn't for me. And we mutually decided that they needed a full-time, director of property management. And that wasn't where I saw myself going. And so I left, planning to go travel and do all the great things that I'd never had time to do before, and finally had some money. And then, of course, COVID-19 hit, and so didn't get a chance to go do all the traveling, and found myself living in Mexico, actually, where I have another place, and just kind of passing time. And then, through my network of folks, started having the conversations about a new job, and finally decided to join the company I'm with today, Core Consulting Group, which is a construction defect group of consultants. And my position there, my official title is Director of Construction and Marketing, 2 very different things, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm really doing there is kind of wearing a lot of the hats once again. And so overseeing all of the marketing efforts, and really it's kind of, even though it's been around for 10 years, they had a lot of change at this organization. So it's kind of a startup mentality again. So building out all the social media, developing the fresh website. I just finished up a brand new logo. So all the apparel and merchandise that goes with that. And managing the IT of this organization, again, I'm going to take from the stone ages of having a giant box on site as a server to moving into the cloud and all of that good stuff. And then also with my construction background, doing construction consulting. And, I was just up in the Bay Area working on a case last week, and out the last couple of days in Yorba Linda. And trust me, this is not glamorous travel, and I would prefer not to be doing it, but it's a grind in the consulting world of with construction. And so that's kind of what I'm doing today. And so, overall, I've been in the construction business, I don't know, about 8, 9 years. So I'm not a longtime veteran by any means, but through that I haven't just done one thing, so I've got a pretty good handle on all aspects of the business, as well as, right now I'm just completing real estate and general contracting licenses. Just need to test for both of those things and adding those to the alphabet soup after my name, to go with everything else. In the consulting world, it's all about how many letters you've got, which is a little ridiculous, but it is what it is. So in any case, that's kind of my background, what I'm doing, where I've been. And then I think the last part of your question before I'll get off here was, lessons learned that I wish I would have known. And for me, it's every day is learning, right? So I don't know that there's anything I wish I would have known ahead of time, other than, you got to maintain an open mind, and you've got to maintain the ability to kind of empathize and understand where other people are coming from, but at the same time, get your point across. And, through all of those different kind of perspectives, hopefully you come to the right conclusions with whatever it is you're faced with. So I'm sure we'll get more into some of that stuff. And I know this is about being, a minority in this, or that kind of aspect of construction development. I definitely have some thoughts, happy to share there as well. But I'll turn it back over to the hosts and let you guys move on.
All right, I appreciate your story. Thanks for sharing that with us, walking through your journey, and and I think reminding us, we should know our passion, and building relationships, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later as it evolves. We'll go to Jeramy. Jeramy has a pretty colorful story.
Jeremy, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a
sorry.
little bit more about your background?
Couldn't hear you. So Jeramy Poole. I am a real estate broker, talk show host of a show called The Moment, and a public speaker. I've really been a serial entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. I'm 36 now. Do not live in San Diego. Used to live in San Diego, lived for about 4 years, a few years ago. Love that place. But began my entrepreneurial journey, if you will, at 19 years old. Started moving in transportation and storage company called North Star Delivery Services. I had no intent of going to college. I knew for sure I did not want to do more schooling, and I knew I had a knack for persuading people. I found that being the youngest and just having a really good idea around how to tell a story in such a way that could put the person in my shoes and convince them to do the things that I wanted them to do. And, my teachers told me, hey, Jeremy, you barely graduated. And I think the reason that you graduate is because you're able to communicate your ideas and your thoughts well. So whatever you do in life, make sure that public speaking is a part of that. And I've tried to do just that. So started moving in transportation and storage company, 19 years old, living in my mom's 3-bedroom apartment. Did not grow up with money, but I was definitely ambitious for whatever reason. Jesse mentioned Jay-Z. Growing up, I had this debilitating stuttering problem, which is interesting. And so I would listen to Jay-Z, Hard Knock Life, I think it was, or Reasonable Doubt, that's what it was, CD in my car, sort of calm my mind as I'm cold calling companies to get these accounts. And it worked. I created a really simple cold calling script, started calling my first companies to set appointments. And I guess just being bold. And I got one account after another. Long story short, within about a year, I was able to move out of my mother's apartment and buy my first home. Within about 2 years, I was able to retire my mother. My brother now worked for me. My older sister worked for me. And I had a workforce of about 20 people. We were able to grow and handle the state of Washington for Cost Plus World Market. We had a big contract with Costco Home, Macy's Furniture, Pier 1 Imports, long list of companies. And so from there, I jumped into real estate on the mortgage finance side. I've purchased a few homes by then, but I didn't really understand the mortgage side of it. A lot of guys that were making, what I was used to making, but were working like way less time, not really having to manage employees, were in the mortgage game. doing mortgage brokering. And so I jumped into that 2009, did that for a few years, but always really loved the entrepreneur aspect of starting something from scratch and really growing it grassroots. So I started another financial services company in Kirkland. This would have been 2012, which made a pivot and we became a tech company, moved that company from Kirkland, Washington, which is just north of Bellevue, which is just east of Seattle, if you're familiar with Seattle. Moved that company to San Diego, La Jolla. We were there for about 4 years. That tech company got a lot of really interesting things that we're involved in there, which is focused around the area of health psychology and just overall emotional well-being. Our little company called Optilife Technologies. We were interviewed by the New York Times. We're on the New York Times. We're in the London Times. Had an opportunity to beta test the product with LinkedIn CEO and the entire LinkedIn staff. We got ourselves by staff, I mean their entire executive staff. We were in negotiations with LinkedIn for about 6 months for them to purchase the product, which would have been a few dollars per employee when you're looking at 27 locations across the globe with 17,000 employees at the time. It would have been a massive, massive account. Long story short, we as a company started to run out of money. We raised about $500,000 throughout that process. But, you know, for any of you who have ran a tech company, that's really a drop in the bucket. Got out of that business, jumped back into real estate. This was 2015. Moved back to Washington. I'm now a mortgage lender again, but I still have that entrepreneur itch. And I had this interesting concept of creating a nonprofit organization for the sole purpose of raising money so I could be like the great Gatsby of the real estate networking world, right? Raise money from large corporations, insurance companies, title companies, mortgage companies, real estate brokerages to host these fancy parties as an attempt to attract attention to myself, so I can persuade top real estate brokers to send me their deals. And it worked. It worked really, really well. First event, we did a live event, hired an interior designer, rented out an entire really upscale resort on the water, right next to a marina where they have yachts and things of that nature. Giant Jenga, just a lot of fun different things that we were doing that other networking groups weren't. We ended up attracting about 85 people. 5 of those individuals end up referring a deal to me that next month. And then during that time, I'm sort of toying with Facebook, toying with Instagram, and kind of learning those models, specifically video marketing. And I got bold, I got courageous, and I decided to rent out, which over here is like one of the most prestigious, most expensive venues to rent. It's an 8,400 square foot glass museum. Through a New Year's party, I wanted to compete with like the big fancy New Year's parties that were happening in Seattle, Bellevue, and Kirkland. If you know those cities, they're very affluent areas. And we did a really, really good job. I worked my butt off, created an event called the P&W Real Estate Social Club, which was the nonprofit that it was for. But this was a New Year's Eve creative black tie gala. Got some really big sponsors on board. Long story short, it was like a $48,000 party. We ended up raising just over $70,000 in one night. And I learned a ton about marketing. I learned a ton about building relationships with large companies. And I learned a ton about hosting really high-end upscale events, which sort of rolled into a lot of discussions with top brokers, lenders, builders, around how they got to where they're at. So it's kind of ironic that we're having this conversation. And what I found was a lot of individuals who've done extremely well in the realm of real estate and really just business in general is they go through some stuff. It goes, whether it's alcoholism, drug addiction, bankruptcy, divorce, what have you, something difficult happens in that person's life, which causes them to become more than what they were in order to evolve. And I started a talk show called The Moment. No experience being on camera, no experience public speaking at this point, besides doing presentations. And that became like sort of a national talk show. If you're familiar with the Telly Awards, I won a bronze Telly Award in 2018 for best reality show. best lifestyle reality series, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. And that turned into a marketing company. So a lot of people seeing my show, I would always do a highlight video. And sometimes I'm in a helicopter or I'm in a Rolls Royce or just doing fun stuff with the people that I'm filming, but I wasn't aware of what I was doing. And really what I was doing was I was creating a brand on social media. And a lot of companies started reaching out, Sotheby's, Keller Williams, you name it, started asking if I would be willing to consult to help their individual branches, but also on the corporate level, build a bigger brand awareness for them. And I told them, I said, look, I appreciate the reach out, but I'm a mortgage lender. You can definitely send me your deals and I'll close them. But they're like, you know what, to be honest with you, it looks like you're a marketer that does loans on the side. You might want to reconsider what you're doing. And so, you know, I did. I ended up launching a real estate focused marketing company, an events company called Real Estate Social. And that did really well. But what I found is when working with a lot of agents, lenders, builders, that quite simply, these guys were making so much more money than I was, and I was working so hard, right? I'm helping build their brands, but at the end of the day, like there's only one of me in the operation I was running, even though that we built it up to where we had a nice office and a few people working for us, but it just wasn't scalable to get to the income that I was trying to reach myself. So decided to become a real estate broker. That was about 2 years ago. And I'm now a real estate broker with Compass. And I have a focus on developing partnerships with top lenders. So specifically, I try to go after branch managers who manage their own individual high volume team, but then that also manage a large branch. And then I focus around helping those individuals increase their business volume, which ultimately becomes an increase in my volume. So hopefully that answers your question. Oh, and the last question would be, you know, looking back, if I was big brother talking to little brother, jumping into business at 19, I would say, don't overestimate what you can accomplish in a month, but definitely do not underestimate what you can accomplish in a year. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody in my family that owned a home or owned a business or anything like that growing up. The thing I regret is I didn't go big enough. I didn't go big enough soon enough. And I think that would be it, is don't underestimate what can be accomplished in 1 year if you're focused.
All right, that's really good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Over to Mr. Adrian. You started very young. You're an OG of the game. Share your story with us here.
Certainly. First of all, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to share. Appreciate the other gentleman's story, both Jeremy and the first gentleman that spoke. So wow, I have to go back quite a bit of ways. How I got to where I am today, started off really, as a very, very, very young person, probably, I don't know, maybe around 7 or 8 years old, due to circumstances beyond my control with my family. My father left when we were very, very young. My mother, there were four, I was three brothers. I'm sorry, I got 2 older brothers, and then there's 3 younger sisters. So I'm the third born in a batch of 6. And if you can imagine, my mom, after my father left, my mom, was struggling and didn't make a lot of money at all. I think back in the 70s, I know I'm telling you a little bit about my age, but she was making, I don't know, somewhere around $20,000 a year, support a lot of children. So, there was not a lot. We grew up financially challenged, and so I had to start working when I was young just to help out. Sometimes, if I wanted toys, if I wanted to travel, if I wanted to do things, go to grandmother's house, see my relatives, things like that. I had to go to the grocery store. Back then it was a Rice Food Market. I would go to the local grocery store, bag groceries for shoppers that come through and then save those tips. you know, and so I reveal this story because this was my hustle, you know, when I was a young kid. This is how, you know, I was able to, you know, I learned the value of money, and I also learned, you know, that just working hard could pay, you know, really good dividends and taking the initiative. So, you know, fast forward to, you know, getting through grade school, graduating from high school, and not really, like a lot of teenagers, not really knowing what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, it's hard to, no one has it figured out when they're 17 and 18. You're just kind of foolish at that point. But, you know, you know, I got into college, and, you know, I finished a couple of years of college at the time, you know, and then, you know, met a young lady and decided to get married. Got married and started having kids early in life. And then I had to go to work. And so, you know, one of my first job opportunities was for Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas, which is where I was born and raised. HBCU, you know, so I was working there. And, you know, my cousin, who was about the same age, finished college at the University of Houston. He had a degree in information systems. And so, you know, he called me up and he was like, "Yeah, Adrian, man, you know, hey, you know, my first job, his first job was a company in Houston. It was a software support company. And, you know, he invited me to come and apply because he said they really needed people." And it was, you know, and computers at the time, I mean, this was around the DOS days, Windows 3.1 days. This was early 90s. Things were just starting to jump off with, you know, the Windows GUI and, you know, learning and things like that. And so, you know, I applied. They asked me a few questions. He had given me the answers to things. and so I passed, and they hired me. And so my first job in technology. And from there, you know, I knew I didn't know much about it. And so I said, well, you know, I don't know, at the time I didn't have much money. I was a young man, just married, broke. You know, I think I may have had, I don't know, $700 in the bank, if I even had that. And so I took $250 and I bought a computer and I bought a book. And, you know, I read the book and started tinkering. And, you know, just by nature, you know, at least back in those days, I was a tinkerer. You know, I needed to know how things work. I'd like to break things apart, put them back together again. I also love to read, you know, so, you know, that's what I started doing. And, you know, I finished the book after probably not even a couple of weeks, you know, and I started building computers, and I started grabbing and just feasting on the knowledge at the time, you know, just learning as much as I could, you know, and so from there, you know, I left that software company and went to a software manufacturer, actually, one that made cost management software and project management software, you know, and I like to say that was my first real job in IT because I was dealing with clients, databases, service management systems, dealing with a lot. You know, I got my first certification there, you know, as far as Windows 95 at the time, Windows NT, the Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer certification. We just, you know, that was big back then, and that's what we were doing. And so I just went all in on that in building that, and, you know, just learned a lot over the years. And from there, you know, I landed my first supervisory position right around 2000. Yeah, this was right around 2000, almost 20 years ago now. I think about it, in IT. And, you know, I was supervising a service desk, you know, a hardware team, you know, and we would go out and deploy Windows 95 and Windows 2000, you know, all over the country. And from there, you know, the director there at the time, you know, she noticed something in me, and she just said, you know, you're really good with people. And, you know, as far as working with and mentoring and coaching people, you know, just, you know, call it a knack. You know, for me, it's just always been, you know, treating people like you want to be treated, and being very respectful of people. You know, I don't care about what color anybody is. That doesn't matter to me. It's just, you know, it's all about character, and it's all about actions, you know, and so, you know, I developed a good rapport with her and my leadership team. And from there, I was in management and pretty much every role since. More recently, so after that, I ended up joining an organization, medical device manufacturer, and this was my first run in with what I felt was something that was really unfair to me. At the time, I wasn't making a lot of money, but I found out a person in the same role, was making almost twice as much as what I made. And so that really, really, really hit a chord with me. And, I just fundamentally I just had a hard time with it. And so I'll never forget, I went and spoke to the HR director, and we talked about it, and he said, Adrian, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go. You say you've got 2 years of college. I want you to finish those additional 2 years. And we had a long talk about it. And after that conversation, I went back to school, finished my Bachelor of Science degree in technology. And, from there, more doors open, more doors open. And so after that, a few years passed, and after a divorce, I needed a change, and so I went to Los Angeles. I got an opportunity there with a real estate investment firm. They hired me as their service team manager, and it was a turnaround job. It was probably one of the more challenging environments that I've ever even had to work in. As far as just, managing people and, assisting with just trying to get the service team to function as a service team should, which is, helping customers and solving issues, and, not too long after I joined, probably about a year or so into that role, my current supervisor, Todd joined, and he joined as my boss. And we did some great things there. We did some great things at CIM Group, turned the team around, and, the team was extremely high functioning. And then, of course, Todd ended up deciding that California was not the place for him. And so he decides to leave and go to Dallas. And he knew I had family from Texas. And so he invited me to join him, which is how I find myself in this position, today. A lot of detail that I left out in between, a lot of good detail, but I wouldn't want to take up the entire night speaking about a lot of different things. But, I think it's been a very interesting journey. A couple of nuggets just to jump through, some things that I've learned over time, no matter what, if life deals you lemons, and this is just from my mom, I'm sure she got it from somewhere, author unknown. But if life deals you lemons, make lemonade, and what that means is, hey, nobody controls who they're born to. Nobody controls your fate. You don't control any of those types of things, but you do the best you can with what you have, and there's a blessing in store. Another wisdom, a nugget of wisdom that I've learned just over time is it's important to the initiative, take the initiative. Be a go-getter, be a self-starter. We hear those things, but those things really are important, as far as, achieving whatever it is one wants to achieve, in life. We're all, there are more paths. There are a lot of different paths that end up in success. And so we just have to remember that, and my journey is a different journey than many have had to walk, but I love my journey. When I look back on it and reflect on it, I probably wouldn't change. There's nothing that I would change, about it, just because some of those things I learned even working as a 7-year-old in a grocery store, I still remember to this very day, and so I think that's, it's just very, very, very important to keep that in mind. That's about it. I may have left out a few things, and I'm sure more things will come back to me. But yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share my story, my journey.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Todd, run us through your journey.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. You know, my journey, the interesting parts of my journey really started after I graduated from college. So I graduated from college. My discipline was always technology. I've been working in technology for close to 30 years now. My specific area of passion was application development. I love talking to people and figuring out what they do and understanding what they need and, you know, what they would like to have and what they feel risky about, and trying to put that together with some sort of technology solution that will make what they do better, give them more efficiency, give them advantages, those kinds of things. So, you know, that was what I spent my time learning when I was in college. And that was what I was focused on as I emerged from college and started taking my first jobs. Each job gave me a nugget about interacting with people and addressing their needs with systems, right? So right after I graduated from college, Adrian mentioned that I wanted to get out of California. That wasn't the first time. I wanted to get out of California right after I graduated from college. And I actually moved to Nevada. And I worked for a small gaming company there. We actually had the opportunity to work on the first generation, this is back in the very early 90s, first generation of video, you know, the touch slots, the touch poker, touch Keno, those machines. And so, you know, the takeaway from that was really getting to know your user so you can develop a very efficient, intuitive user interface. And the users that we had to address were people who have been up all night drinking and smoking in a casino. They had to be able to sit down. They had to be able to sit down and play a video game on these machines. They couldn't read a manual. There couldn't be someone to teach them how to do it. They had to figure it out. So that was really a good lesson. I learned a lot working for that company, just working on user interface design and trying to make it efficient and those sorts of things. I was then recruited away from that company and I joined a clinical research firm back in California. So I came back, and again, this firm was had a situation where they had a lot of people doing a lot of manual work. They had aspirations to grow. Frankly, if they increase the volume of activity going on in their organization the way they envisioned, they would need to probably double the amount of people that they had in that organization. It was so people intensive from a process perspective. So this was a huge opportunity for me to come in and understand a completely new business. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea, you know, what they did or how it worked or, you know, what their sensitivities were. And so I had to learn. And I heard a common theme coming from all of the folks who spoke before me. A lot of time, you know, a lot of initiative, a lot of talking to people, just really taking that ownership upon yourself to go out and learn, right? And in this case, I was able to build out a highly integrated laboratory information system. I spent about 18 months building it out. And, you know, this actually was a major stepping stone in my career to the next opportunity that came around, which was Countrywide. And at Countrywide, I joined they called us a senior programmer analyst. And that's different than a senior programmer. The senior programmer analysts like to talk to people. They like to go and they like to interact with business people and learn the business and, you know, start to become acquainted with the business in such a way that we actually felt comfortable proposing things to the business. Hey, maybe we could do it this way, right? I remember one day my boss walked by my desk, and if you walked through our cube farm and looked at any of our desks, you would see people had C++ books, they had Visual Basic books, they had SQL Server books, and I had those books, but I also had mortgage law book for California and real estate business process book. And my boss asked me, why do you have those books? We have business analysts who are giving us what we need to know. And I said, well, I need to know more. I need to know more. I have to understand it better, not just what they want the screen or the system to do. And so that attribute in me has been something that I've used as I've moved on and on and on. And I stayed at Countrywide for almost 10 years. I actually ultimately moved out of the central IT group and joined their broker dealer, which was, just it was one of those opportunities. And I think, again, when an opportunity comes your way, even if it looks risky, those are sometimes the things that you jump on. You hit it really hard, you work it really hard, and it turns out to be something that's a springboard in your career. And that was the case here. I jumped into the broker dealer. It was risky. It was a small business. It was a new business inside of Countrywide. 90 people. They had big dreams. And over the course of the following 9 or 10 years, we grew to a firm of 1,200 people. We had offices in Japan and in London and around the country. And we, with 1,200 people in a company of close to 60,000 people, made up 23% of the revenue of the organization. Our little organization did that. And it was exciting to be part of that and part of growing that platform. Again, all of this has been really application development work, really interacting with people, building out tools, building out capabilities that they need and can use to make things happen. It was also one of the places where I had opportunities to make proposals twice. One time was a proposal for a market data system. We spent at the time about $1 million a year using this Reuters system, and all it did was display market data for us. We saw an opportunity there because we had to pay for all those market data feeds anyway. The $1 million was just for the screens that were displaying it. So we figured, why don't we build that? And if we could build that for something less than $1 million, then we would recoup that money over and over and over again in the coming years. And we did that, and it worked out, and it was a big deal, right? And so I won't go into the other situations that we went through, and it certainly wasn't all me. And I think I'll come back to that in just a minute. It wasn't all me. We all know what happened back in 2007, 2008, 2009. That was the financial crisis. I think Jeramy, didn't you get in the mortgage business in 2009? That must have been interesting during those years. But in any case, Countrywide turned into a smoldering hole in the ground during that period of time. And I jumped out of what was called the sell side of the market to the buy side of the market. So I'm still in financial services, but now I'm working for Oaktree Capital Management. At this point, I'm responsible for global application development for that company. And, my responsibilities are still on the application front, but I also became very intimate with, SOX preparedness, developing a governance platform that could handle a SOC 1 certification, for example. Those kinds of things became very relevant. I didn't know it at the time. I thought it was very, Todd, we need to do this. Can you help build it? Yes, I'll do it, of course, because I always said yes. But it was very frustrating because I really said, oh, this is such a waste of time. It became something that was very, very important later in my career. I spent 8 years at Oaktree, and an opportunity came to join CIM Group as their Chief Technology Officer, which is where I met Adrian. Adrian didn't get into a lot of detail at CIM, but I think that what's really important, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. There's a question for the panel that's going to come to us I'll get into this in a little more detail, but companies on the buy side in the financial services market start small. Their core competency is investments. They're not thinking about technology. They're not thinking about process. All they want to do is just, I need Excel. And that's kind of how they think. And so technology kind of grows organically in that company in one-off hops from one thing to another. And then they're successful at investing, the platform grows, And pretty soon, whatever that has happened from a technology perspective actually can't support what they're doing anymore. And that's where CIM found itself. And that's what they were looking for us to repair. It was a problem that was technology. It was a people problem. We had a people problem inside the technology team. And so, yeah, that was the opportunity to do some good work there. And, you know, moving to Texas was, the timing for that was great for me. Crow Holdings is a fantastic company with a fantastic history, and yet it still suffered from the same issue in terms of, you know, their core competency is real estate. That's what they do. That's what they think, and we can do it in Excel. And you know, they just didn't think about technology the way that academically we all think you would, right? It should be a partner. And so they came to a point where they realized and they wanted to make the investment. And you know, I joined the firm. I asked Adrian to join the firm, and we've made a lot of work. We've done a lot of work on the team, mentoring, coaching, hiring. We've done a lot of work on the team to make it happen. So that's a journey that I have enjoyed experiencing and sharing with you. The nuggets. So again, I'll just say that there's a common thread that I think comes through in all four of us who were just talking, and that's take the initiative, right? Everybody talked about taking the initiative, and that is something that is absolutely critical. That's something that you can control yourself. Just take the initiative. Good things tend to happen for people who take the initiative. The thing that I wish I was told earlier in my career, right? When I was young and thought I knew it all, I was not very patient. Okay, Adrian, you know, he mentioned his HR person that he talked to said, Adrian, go back, finish your 2 years of college. Okay, that's 2 years. That must have sounded like a long time to Adrian, but he was patient and he did it. Be patient. Let situations evolve. That's something that I wish I would have learned earlier in my career. And a little spin-off from that is just being able to listen, right? When people are saying something that you disagree with, really being able to just not sit there and nod your head, but actually listen. Because even though you disagree with what they're saying, there's nuggets that come through in those conversations that can help. And that goes with be patient and let situations evolve, because, you know, I can't tell you how many times I have sat back and just let situations evolve. And you know in your heart that what we're talking about and the way we're approaching this is not correct. But rather than creating a situation and resisting and creating all kinds of tension, you can let it evolve and let people figure things out. And lo and behold, lots of times you find yourself where you thought you needed to be in the first place, right? And I guess the final thing is don't be a hero. You know, just taking the initiative is great, but you know what? I find that I need to spend a ton of my time, and I don't regret this at all, shining the light on people on my team, right? It isn't about me. I get credit because the team's doing it. I don't need to talk about me at all. I need to talk about them and make sure that I can put the spotlight on them and propel them and take care of their careers as they go on their journey. So there you have it, guys. I'll give it back to the host.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we really appreciate all the stories. You know, Todd, as you were talking and you're talking about, you know, the common theme that's coming through tonight, I was saying to Mary, it seems like you're reading my notes. We have similar notes, and something else that came through is, you know, having that people skill and building relationships. Those are so important. And then, you know, if someone is, I think this was Adrian, you know, you're getting feedback, and sometimes feedback is not always positive, so to speak, but just always be open to feedback, and that feedback can help you. So in the interest of time, I have a follow-up question and for each of the panelists, and this will probably be about a minute or 2 minutes each to respond. So put on your mentor hats at this point. What advice would you have for young professionals that has a desire, who has a desire to advance in their career field and or climb the corporate ladder? And then the second part of that is, do you think, because we're a multicultural group, do you think that race is a barrier to climbing the corporate ladder, or is that an accelerant? You know, so let's kick it off with Jesse this time.
Okay, thank you. So yes, advice that I would give, and I will be brief because I know we're over on time, is, you know, grind and be hungry, but listen. You know, not enough listening happening in work, business places, the world in general, right? Listen to one another and learn from people, you know, and interject when appropriate. But, you know, work hard, grind, and listen are the three things that I would say for folks interested in climbing the corporate ladder. And then part two of your question was, you know, is race a factor? And unfortunately, absolutely. You know, I often hear people naively say things like, I don't see color. And I would say, well, if you don't see color, then how do you see racism? You know, it's one of those ridiculous things that you kind of hear out there. Accept it, accept the fact that being a minority in a lot of industries is going to make things extra challenging. It's just it's the world that we live in. It sucks, it's unfortunate, but it's true. You know, and in the construction and real estate industry, and that's what we're talking about here tonight, I can count on one hand how many people I've met that are minorities in management level positions. And I don't have enough hands, feet, or anything to count the people that are actually doing the work. I mean, the reality is in certain Southern California, 98% of the working folks in the trades, contractors out there, are minorities, but they're not represented in management. And that's a fact, and that's reality. You all are free to form your own opinions on why that is, but I think we all know why that is. There is a glass ceiling for not just women, but minorities in this industry and any industry. And so knowing that, you have to put yourself in a position to be able to successfully overcome by, you know, whether you choose to do it via education. It's not always the answer, but that works for some people. You choose to do it by grinding hard work, not for everybody, but works for some people. But keep as many different avenues open as you can, and you know, networking. And I hate the term networking, to be honest. I know that's what we're doing here, but it's relationship building, and that's any industry. It's, you know, Jeramy's industry, it's Adrian's industry, it's Todd's industry. It's relationship building. So establish those relationships, and that'll help you move past. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Adrian, do you want to go next?
Certainly. Those were some, Jesse, I appreciate those thoughts, man. Those were some good items. The thing that I think about the most as far as the first part of your question is, I think it's just very important to attempt, to try, to do everything we can to be prepared. You know, if I'm giving a young person some advice, I'm gonna give them the same advice that a doctor gave me. And you know, I had a lot of respect for this gentleman. He was an older gentleman, but he would always talk to me about, you know, being prepared, you know, and where preparation meets opportunity, you have a chance to get what he called lucky, you know. But then he'd always say, but then it's really not luck, is it? Or is it? You know, and he would pose, we would have he would pose some questions, and we'd have some really good dialogue about it. And so he always stressed the need to attempt to do everything we can do to be prepared. And so if I was given, you know, as I mentor folks and even mentoring folks on my team, you know, I mean, you know, some of the stuff that I say that, like I said, it's stuff you hear every day. It's stuff you probably heard, you know, from your parents when you were younger. And that is, you know, work hard, listen, show respect, but I would add definitely be prepared, that's very important. Try to be prepared. And some of that is through education. Some of it is through, networking and relationship building. It's through community volunteering, being active in the community, meeting folks through activism. There are many different ways to be engaged and to be prepared, because, the world is, even though it's global and it's really big, it's also really small because through technology, it's made it so that, we can participate in the meeting. We're all different sides of the country, right? I'm sitting right here right now in Miami and you guys are in San Diego. Just think about that and how, we're still all able to come together. Technology has made this possible. So those are just some of the things that I would state, along with being patient. I do believe patience is important, because, I think I was sharing this not long ago that a lot of folks that I grew up with, and trying to make money and things like that, they would be like, also all these get rich quick schemes. There was a lot of that, trying to find a way around doing it the right way, or, maybe I would say, I don't necessarily say the right way, but a harder way, which is going to school, taking the time, learning, networking with your, college buddies and things like that. Those things are valuable. And those relationships that are built and forged from that are very, very, very valuable. And they can, serve you very well for a lifetime. So I would also say be patient. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry, because I didn't write it down. So remind me.
The second part was, is race a factor in?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And to echo Jesse, and I think a lot of parents may feel the same way. I mean, look, I wish it wasn't. I think deep down we all wish, in the words of the late Dr. Martin Luther King, that everyone was simply judged by what they do, their character. That's inspirational though. When we think about Dr. King's speech, that's a dream. That's inspirational. We're not there yet. Unfortunately, people do see skin color, and it can be an obstacle, for opportunities, which is the reason why you had, affirmative action programs. You've had all different types of programs, that have received support so that, folks of color and minorities can have, more opportunities, to build a life in this challenging, world. But I'll say this though too, even recognizing that and acknowledging that, 20 years ago, you would never have been able to convince me that we would have an African-American president of the United States, okay? Just going, in 2000, I thought it was an impossibility. I said, well, maybe for my great-grandchildren, in 2070 or 2080 or whatever that might be, when I'm long gone, we would see that. But yet, we saw it with President Barack Obama. And, look, I bring him up because I think that when you start thinking about ceilings and where people can go, and I know we started this, Lorraine, you started this by saying, we have, a female right now who, you said it was pending, but I don't believe it's pending. I believe, she was elected. He was elected. Okay, the vote is the vote. I mean, I already know there's court cases and stuff like that. The will of the people, they voted, and, there we have it. Many people will now look at these things and start to dream and say, you know what, maybe one day that could be me. And the same thing when you start thinking about leadership, in organizations, it's, I think Jesse said it, first that, hey, not a lot of representation at the upper levels, and that's true across the board. I think that's true for many, many companies. But I do believe that over time, you're going to start to see that ceiling crack. It's cracked in my lifetime already. you know, and I have and I'm gonna finish with this. I have a 99-year-old grandmother that is still alive, and I think about her every single day, you know, Miss Johnson. And, you know, I just visited her, you know, a few weeks ago, you know, and one of the things she was sitting up talking about was, you know, we had a conversation about the election, you know, and what was going to happen. And, you know, look, 99 years, you know, she was an adult when Hitler was still on the earth. She was an adult, you know, when World War II happened, you know, in 1940. She was born in 1921. So she's seen it all. She'll be 100 years old next year, and she can still start talk. She can still speak. She remembers it all. And she's seeing things that she never thought she would see in this lifetime. You know, so you know, I would encourage, you know, any and everyone, you know, that yeah, I mean, the past is the past, and all we can do is learn from it. But the ceiling will crack. It's inevitable. It may take time. It may not happen in, you know, how fast we think it should, but it's going to crack. So I'll leave you guys with that.
All right, Mr. Jeramy.
There we are. All good stuff. All good stuff for sure. This is an important topic, interesting topic. I think my experience has been different. And I think that's really all that we can talk to. Number one, in terms of advice I would give a young person, I would say find something that you're naturally gifted at, something that comes easy to you, something that when you're doing it, the minutes, the hours seem to just go away and you seem to just flow, and you probably have received compliments from people, whether your friends, your family, whatever. And maybe that thing is hard for other people to do, and then become great at it.